everyone, welcome to Culture TV. This is Larice. Today I have an interesting topic. What is it really like being an African American in Africa? Is there racism? What about tribalism? How did it all affect me? Stay tuned and find out. So what is it really like in Africa as an African American? I'm sure we all have different ideas. I had an idea before I went what it would be like. Some people wonder, is it kind of this, you make it sound like it's this wonderful magical experience, everybody's getting along, everybody is so welcoming. You see different videos and people explaining when they went back and how they felt. So what is it really like on a practical level? I want to explain. Now, part of it, yeah, it is kind of like that. At least on the inside, that's how I felt. It felt refreshing to be in a country full of African people. It felt really refreshing to every day wake up to cultural things that I appreciated, things that I think we have in common and we don't even realize that we have in common. So those things were exciting to me, and it is really kind of, there is a little bit of magic to it. But then what is it really like for you as an African American? Are you accepted? Are you considered one of them? How does that all work together? So there's a lot of aspects to that. One question that I got is there racism in Africa? Or is it just a place that's free of that you don't have to worry about that evil? And my answer would be yes and no. So in America, racism comes in the form of a lightning bolt, meaning that when it hits you, you know it. It's deadly, it's dangerous, it's shocking, you know it when it happens. So what I mean by that is that it's more of that one-on-one encounter when you see it. While in Africa, I would illustrate it more to be like a rain cloud, wherein it's not kind of that one-on-one thing, but it's become just a darkness over the whole country that's dimming the light, that people don't even realize. They just get used to it. And what I mean by that is more that you see the effects of colonialism. You see the effects more globally on the scale of the whole country's economy. And people don't realize that. They tend to blame themselves. I will hear people say, well, the country is not better, the country is doing this, doing that. And half of the things they're describing are not the country's fault, but for the fact the country's only been independent for just under 60 years. Think about that. Just under 60 years they were a colony. So now for them to have gained so much traction is not really reasonable. The effects of colonialism are very strong, and I think it's something that tends to be forgotten in the eyes of people, and it's not something that I forgot. So when I was there, I would see different things I was surprised by. From my perspective, as an American, I was used to America being able to do anything and everything. In fact, if America outsources something, I assume it's not because they can't do it, but because it's cheaper to outsource it. While in Africa, a lot of times the attitude I was the answer I was getting when I said, well, why can't they make that here? Why can't they do that here? Why do they outsource it? The attitude was more, we don't know how. We're not able to do that. And that always hurt my heart, because I'm like, my experience is that you all are very capable. The ingenuity in Africa is off the charts. The things that people are able to do with so little is way more than we're able to do in America. So I would just kind of get that general understanding that it was the effects of colonialism and the way how Africa is viewed in the world and often disrespected, often looked down on. You can see foreigners there who are treating the nationals terribly, yet still the nationals are still patronizing them and still allowing them to do business there. And I'm glad that there are some countries now that are waking up to this. And not that I would support xenophobia and say that, okay, all the foreigners need to leave. No, that's not the answer. But there needs to be a shift in the mentality that anything foreign is better and that anything African made is subpar. There needs to be a shift in that mentality, and there needs to be a respect for Africa and Africans. So that's how I would say racism is in effect in Africa. But the fact that the lightning bolt type one-on-one racism discrimination is not in Africa is actually a really good reason for African Americans to go and experience it, because what you're going to experience is just a shifting of your paradigm. I really think paradigms are interesting because a paradigm is like just you kind of see the world one way, you think this is how it is, this is how it has to be. So if you experience another culture, another place wherein life is not like that, wherein you're not going to just experience or be worried about or be thinking that one-on-one racist encounter could happen, that is really life-changing to you. That is really freeing to you, and it kind of makes you move differently in the world. I think that the fear of that and the experience, if people are experiencing that a lot, if they are hearing about it being experienced in certain parts of the country a lot, and just the fear of it at any time in America can really become internalized, and it changes the way that we move in the world. So when you go to Africa and you're free from that, it's a really great experience, and it's something that I think can be potentially life-changing. I heard someone say that it was life-changing when they first went to Africa because they experienced privilege for the first time in their life. They went to a country wherein they were able to blend in with the people, and they were there with with Caucasian people, and every time in a group that they would go to a toll or a checkpoint or be in a market situation, they experienced privilege because the people thought they were African and the other people were foreign, and they were able to get discounts that the other people couldn't. So little things like that, that's life-changing to think like, wow, I've never actually experienced privilege from being black. On a practical level, what is that like? Does that mean you are just everybody embraces you as one of theirs, they don't see any difference between you? Yes and no. I think that part of that depends on you. Part of it depends on how you look, to be honest. If you're able to blend in to the country you go to, then on some level you can experience that privilege and feel like I'm home. Nobody's looking at me different. Nobody's pointing out. I heard a woman say she had recently moved back to Africa as a member of the diaspora. I think her parents immigrated to Britain. She moved back to Africa as an adult, and she said, in Britain, I always felt like a black woman. In Africa, I just feel like a woman. And part of that has to do with if you can blend in with the people. So for me, I couldn't do that in West Africa. I can't really do that. Maybe in East Africa, maybe one day I'll go to Ethiopia, Eritrea, and maybe I will be able to blend in. But for me in West Africa, I was not able to do that. So part of it is that. The other part of it is how you act, how you treat people. So many people who are even African themselves, when they go back for a visit, when they go back for business, the way how they act, they portray themselves as if they're better than other people, as if that little piece of paper from America giving you stay, giving you citizenship, automatically upgrades you as a human being. If you're treating people like that, then yeah, people are going to treat you differently. And I'm not saying even they're gonna treat you badly, but you're not gonna feel completely at home like one of them, and you will miss out on a lot of experiences and conversations. So I purposely didn't want to portray that. So after, how I was perceived at first is a topic for another video, but eventually I will say that yeah, I did feel very accepted. I did feel very much like family, community, and like I said, that's partly how you interact with the people. I chose really to stay humble and to not think that somehow I knew more or was better. I mean, I was in their country, so I was a student when I was there. So if everybody's wearing flip-flops, I'm not going in heels. If everybody's casual, I'm not going to be dressed up. If everybody's eating this, I'm eating this. So that's how. And after time, after people got to know me, then I felt very, very accepted. And there were things that only I could see as an African American that I was like, these things that you guys are doing, you don't even know how much it reminds me of my own culture, makes me feel at home because they're out in the open. Like example, like doing hair. Every hair shop, you know, in America, when you go to the store, there will be a small section of the African American hair products, but in Africa, everywhere you go is all our own hair products. And then you can see women outside doing hair, just freely, like feeling like it's free, like this is everybody understands. So there were certain things that you felt like an understanding, you felt like an automatic acceptance because of the connections that we have. And then there were other ways, of course, because you are still a foreigner, wherein you don't maybe feel accepted, not rejected where I was, because the people were friendly. So I didn't feel rejected ever or necessarily judged, but I did feel a distance sometimes. But then I was able to close that gap a little bit by showing respect to their culture and still remembering who I was, but showing respect and being humble and being willing to try things and be a part of what they were doing. If you don't do that, you're missing out on a lot. If you're not willing to try things, if you're not willing to see things a different way, you will miss out on a whole lot. And I'm glad that I feel like I was able to experience a lot because I was willing to try things. So what about tribalism? Often when I talk about the fact that there's no direct racism in Africa and how wonderful and important that is for African Americans to experience, then I will get pushed back and say, well, there's not racism in Africa, but there's tribalism. So what about tribalism? First, what is tribalism? Well, a tribe is not something that we really have as African Americans or in America at all, really. But a tribe is an ethnic group that has certain distinct things that they share, like a language, a region, a culture. So in Sierra Leone, where I was, there are more than a dozen tribes, and they are regional typically. In the city, they're all mixed together, but they typically have certain regions that they occupy and have a distinct language. Is the way in Sierra Leone you can tell if someone's tribe. Other parts of Africa there might be different ways, but in Sierra Leone there's no physical features necessarily, but it's mostly language that you can identify someone's tribe. There is a unifying language also in the country, but usually people also speak a tribal language as well. So tribalism is when tribes are prejudiced against each other, fight each other, judge each other, things like that. And yeah, that is in Africa. That's true. It's a problem all over Africa. It's a problem all over Asia. It's been a problem in Europe. I don't know that it's as strong today, the people's tribal or clan affiliations in Europe. But if you watch Braveheart, the whole movie is about tribalism. It's about clans not liking each other. So it's a global problem. It's not an African problem. And it is a problem, but it's not the same thing as racism. Tribalism typically is kind of a little bit of an ignorance, or just a too much pride in your own tribe, saying I think my tribe is better than yours, which nobody should really judge each other and say that. And it can play out to the extreme, but it's not the same thing as racism. Racism doesn't say I think I'm better than you. Racism says I think you're not human, and goes on to discriminate and treat people as if they're not human. So I don't like to equate the two. I don't like to say, well, they don't have racism, but they have tribalism. Well, I mean, tribalism is different. We don't tend to get involved in tribalism because I don't feel equipped to address it. Tribalism is very difficult for us to understand because we didn't grow up in that context, and to understand the intricacies of it, I think we're not equipped to address it. Although it is an issue, as a Christian, I can pray about it. I can definitely say it's wrong, but to actually be intimately involved in it, we're not equipped to do that. So I mean, I would, if I see it, I would point it out. I tend to do that by asking questions. If I would hear somebody talk bad about another tribe, then I might ask a question like, what do you mean by that? Like, ask the person to explain more, and they can tend to catch themselves. But it's a deep thing, and it's something that definitely needs to be worked on. But I would call on those who are natives of various tribes to work on it within their own tribe. But again, it's not the same thing as racism. And it's not largely going to affect you as an outsider. You are welcome typically in any tribe, and especially to come and learn about them. And as long as you're not comparing them to other tribes or kind of showing that same tribalistic attitude, you're typically welcome in any tribe to learn about them and to experience them. So that would be my understanding and my experience of tribalism. So overall, where is better for us then? Is it America or is it Africa? That is a difficult question. I think that the key to that is that the answer and the takeaway from looking at the different ways that racism plays out, the benefits of Africa, the benefits of America, I think that the takeaway is really that we need to be in conversation with each other. As an African American, to go to Africa, to have racism removed from my view, removed from my mind, off of my radar, was a powerful experience, was something that changed who I am, changed the way that I walked, the way that I talked, the way that the opportunities I saw for myself. Definitely changed things, changed the way I viewed myself. So I needed that. I think Africans, hearing the African American perspective and coming to America, I can't speak to that experience, but I'm sure coming to America, hearing our perspective will also change your mentality and make you aware of things you were not aware of before, perhaps bring compassion to our situation. So I think that the takeaway is we need to be in conversation with one another. To hear African American like myself coming in and not having a colonialism on my radar, not having the idea of foreigners helping us, taking care of our country on my radar because I'm American, hearing my perspective could set you free from that mentality, and could help you to say, actually, why am I doing it this way when maybe there is another way. Maybe there is a way that's better for Africa for me to conduct this kind of business. So I think we need to be in conversation with one another. I think that's the most important takeaway, and that's what I continue to see, not only on this topic, but on every topic when it comes to our family life, when it comes to our traditions, when it comes to our faith and the church, when it comes to issues of race and identity and ethnicity. I think that Africans and African Americans need to be in conversation, because we come from two different perspectives, and if we put those together, the sky's the limit. So that's my takeaway for today. I'd be curious to hear what some of your thoughts are, what your experiences have been. If you've been to Africa, if you were African American, were you accepted? Did you feel accepted? How was it for you to be in a country full of Black people, seeing Black culture on full display? If you're African, what was it like when you came to America and started to hear about instances of racism? How was it for you, and what did that do to your mentality? Overall, I would love to continue the conversation in the comments if we could, and love to hear everybody's perspective. Thank you again for watching. I appreciate all of the love and support. I want to continue to grow the channel, continue to talk on more topics. If you have a topic that you'd like to hear, let me know. You can subscribe to the channel and you will get notifications to know when I have a new video. Again, I appreciate all of your support. God bless you.